Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So I wanted to give sort of like a life update and just kind of let you guys know, I guess, what my plans for the channel are or my lack of plans for the channel. I have scheduled some backlogged videos that I made. So those will be going up over the next few months. I think March had like nothing. I've just kind of been out of it. So you will be seeing some videos going up where I'm talking about like RFK and him getting nominated. And so, it's kind of like months delayed. I had other videos planned as well, talking about the EV and Juno Bio microbiome tests, but I had already posted some, like my reviews on those tests and how I feel about those tests. And then I was going to compare results, but I think I'm going to hold off on that. And the reason why I'm kind of going to hold off on that is because there is a possible new diagnosis on the horizon for me. And so I don't feel like I can review those tests accurately because my situation is not typical. I'm not just a typical person that is, doing these microbiome tests and, and working on my microbiome or something. I have a chronic illness and apparently I may have possible endometriosis. So I recently had an ultrasound. I do have an oncologist. I may have done a video about this before, but I do think I have a playlist that talks about, I think, stiff person syndrome and, all of that. And that should explain a little bit, of why I have an oncologist. The short story is I had a very rare antibody show up on a blood test like around, I think it was like 2018, and that antibody is exclusively related to cancer, specifically breast cancer, to a lesser extent lung and ovarian cancer. And I was told it was a false positive. They ran the test again and it was negative. But then the doctor changed his tune and said, well, sometimes those antibodies can show up long before the cancer does. I don't know how true that is. Please don't quote me on that. But from that point on, I had to have an oncologist. So I think I was 34 when I first started seeing my oncologist and getting mammograms. You're typically supposed to start getting mammograms at 40. I started getting them at 34. So I've been seeing this oncologist since then. I've had her for a long time. She's actually one of the best doctors that I have. But she's very diligent. So I do blood work every single year, once a year. I do tumor markers and all of that. And over this last year, she has been seeing the numbers creeping up slowly, the certain tumor markers, but they weren't out of range. And a lot of times these tumor markers can creep up when you have an infection. I imagine chronic illness can cause them to sort of, fluctuate. And of course, I have had infections over the last year, suspected SIBO and all kinds of stuff. But they weren't out of range. And I don't know, she's just a very diligent oncologist. And she's like, I don't know. I think that we should do an ultrasound and then I'll see you again in a few months. I've seen her, I think, already 3 times within the last year. I usually only see her once a year. So I guess that was something that she was seeing that was worrisome to her. But I told her, I said, I have bloating. I've been having a lot of issues. And she ordered an abdominal MRI last year to rule out pancreatic cancer, because that's one of the tumor markers that's creeping up. It's a pancreatic tumor marker. And the other one is ovarian. So this time she said, let's do an ultrasound, a pelvic, vaginal ultrasound, and it's showing something on one of my ovaries. It's showing something called an endometrioma, or a potential endometrioma, which means you have endometriosis. And again, this makes a lot of sense, but there's no point in getting upset about that now because I've been dealing with, certain issues for years now, and it seems like things are coming to a boiling point. As I've mentioned here on this channel, I've had an infection for 6 months, a vaginal infection. I had ureaplasma last year. I don't have ureaplasma anymore. I just have a persistent BV, and I don't know why. So I'm thinking that this may be the reason why. There's probably a lot of inflammation in that area, or some other kind of issue. And, this is just not allowing this infection to be cleared. I don't know. I'm putting pieces together in my head because doctors don't seem to really be explaining much to me. So I did this ultrasound, and then she said, we're going to follow up in, I think it was like a month or something, maybe a couple months. And she ordered the blood work again. And specifically, I had to do it 1 week before I saw her. And now the blood work is out of range. Both tumor markers are in the red. And so it seems like they just keep going up. Now, this can happen with endometriosis, but it can also happen with cancer. I mean, these are tumor markers for cancer. So, I'm trying not to worry too much about it, especially because the ultrasound is showing that it's most likely an endometrioma. But I still have to get, first opinion and a second opinion. I already got my first opinion from a gynecological oncologist. He wasn't great. I'm not going to go into it here. I may end up reviewing his practice later on, because I like to do that on here. I like to review, I've reviewed a lot of stem cell clinics just based on consultations I've had with them. But it's funny that I never really review the doctors that I see. And I mean, I don't think there should be anything keeping me from doing that. You can review them online on Google. I have already done my review for this gynecological oncologist because he wasn't great. But I think that I should start doing that here because this is, I mean, I don't think I have cancer, but again, it doesn't really matter what I think. It doesn't run in my family, not any kind of cancer really, but not ovarian cancer. But I do feel like it would be so helpful to be outspoken about certain doctors, especially when there's just weird kind of sketchy behavior, things that just aren't really, basically this oncologist told me, he's like, you don't have cancer, without running any more tests. He's like, you don't have cancer, and you need to get that taken out. But apparently he doesn't, he's not the one that's going to do it. But I thought it was very strange that he would just immediately say, you don't have cancer without any further testing. My regular oncologist has ordered an MRI. So we're going to move forward with another MRI, similar to the one last year, but more extensive. We're going to do more areas of the body. And, I was kind of reluctant to do it at first because I had just had an MRI done last year, and I was, it's literally been just 1 year, and I'm thinking how much could change within a year. But she insisted on this MRI. It's going to be, like I said, more extensive. And I thought, what, that's fine. From my understanding, whether it's endometriosis or ovarian cancer or anything like that, it cannot be diagnosed through imaging alone. So the ultrasound and the MRI are not going to be enough to diagnose either condition. There has to be a laparoscopy and a biopsy needs to be done in order to definitively diagnose both conditions. But my oncologist had said that she was not going to be able to convince anybody to do anything more invasive without more imaging. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that the imaging shows something, because if it doesn't, then it's just going to be kind of like let's just observe this situation. A lot of the symptoms that I've been having within the last couple of years are indicative of endometriosis. And I found this out because I had an appointment at Cedars at their GI clinic this past March. And the resident that was taking down my history mentioned if I had ever been checked for endometriosis, which I thought was odd because I was there for bloating, bloating and possible SIBO and all of that. I don't know if I've done a video on my visit there, which I should actually. So it was very odd. She mentioned that, but then we just kind of got past that, and then the doctor came in because she was just a resident there, and so the doctor didn't really mention anything about that. We're running some tests, some blood work, and some other tests, and then I follow up with him at the end of this month. During that time was when I had seen my oncologist, and she did the ultrasound. So I didn't know the results of my ultrasound until after this appointment. Had I known them before, that would have been great, because then I would have been able to tell the resident, hey, something showed up on one of my tests. And I probably could have even pulled it up there and shown it to her, but I did not know. So a lot of the signs are pointing to endometriosis. But again, some of these symptoms can overlap with ovarian cancer, bloating, stomach issues, fatigue. And speaking of the fatigue, that is why I'm making this video, because I have been more tired than usual. I'm not somebody that's full of energy as it is. A lot of my physical exercise that I used to do has kind of dropped off since I've been living on my own. And especially after the ureaplasma treatment, like my legs have been hurting more. I've just been generally not in as good condition as I used to be. But I have noticed that I have been more tired lately. I am very, I'm iron. I'm actually anemic at this point because I've been very irregular with periods, losing more blood than I should. And so that also can contribute to tiredness. And we're working on that. The doctor is working on that situation as well. So, I totally spaced out during March. I had some videos scheduled, I think, January and February, and then I think March. It may have been March or April. They just kind of dropped off, so you probably haven't seen anything on my channel. And then I remembered that I had backlogged some videos, and so I scheduled those. But after that, I think I have a couple of videos, a few scheduled through July, maybe. But other than that, I don't really know what else. I mean, I think the only videos that I could make are things that, along the way of my journey with this new situation, if I have the energy for it. Because I'm telling you, it feels like, there have been days I've been having these episodes where I actually wake up tired, which is really weird because I don't wake up, totally refreshed every day, but it's bizarre to wake up and still be really tired. And I've had a few episodes like that where I'm waking up and I'm still really tired, and it's like I don't want to get out of bed. And then I just feel generally kind of tired or foggy throughout the day. I've had to eliminate more supplements that were sort of helping me with my energy because they're causing GI issues. So I'm trying to figure out the whole supplement thing, especially with iron, because I really need the iron. And that's probably why I'm so tired. So you may not see a lot from my channel. I will try. I think the easiest videos for me to make at this point are videos documenting this specific journey. I would like to make a video on the Cedars GI clinic. My follow-up is at the end of this month, so maybe I'll do it after my follow-up. And just kind of maybe make videos about the doctors that I'm seeing, because as far as other sort of more abstract like opinion pieces, my brain is just not there right now. And the whole endometriosis thing makes a lot of sense, and I'm hoping that it might be one of the missing pieces of the puzzle for my health. I don't know if it will be. I definitely don't believe that this is the reason why I've been chronically ill for so long, but I'm wondering if it's contributing to, all the inflammation that I have and some of the issues that I haven't been able to overcome. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Obviously, in the back of my mind, there is always the sort of cancer thing back there. And I just really have been trying not to think about it. Although I've been getting, after this appointment with the gynecological oncologist, I did go to the subreddit for for ovarian cancer, and I kind of shared my experience because he made me feel like I was being paranoid, and I wasn't really there to talk about cancer. I was there to talk about endometriosis. And a lot of women responded to my post saying they didn't have any symptoms, or some of them had just small symptoms like bloating. A lot of them didn't even have elevated tumor markers. Mine are already out of range, so mine are in the red. So it's a little bit scary. I'm trying not to get scared. I'm not really much of a hypochondriac. Like, in all honesty, I'm not really sure what a cancer diagnosis, like how much of a difference that would make for me. I mean, given the fact that I've already been sick for so long, but that is always in the back of my mind. And, a lot of the women that responded to my post are urging me to get another opinion, which I am. I'm actually going back to Cedars and seeing a gynecologist at Cedars as well. So I'm not just going to stop here. And then, of course, I have the MRI that I'm going to be doing in a few weeks. So I just kind of wanted to make this video to let you guys know what's going on, and that I might be MIA. There are days when I'm just like, I don't want to do this channel anymore, because I don't really know how many people are watching, or how many, if this is helping anybody. I do know that my ureaplasma video was very popular, and I'm very happy about that, because I'm hoping that it's helping other people out there. I consider myself one of the lucky ones that I was able to treat the ureaplasma, and so far have not had a recurrence, knock on wood. But now I have this other issue, right? And so I do feel like this information is also important for women out there, say that you're going through the same thing I'm going through, where you have this weird BV infection that just won't go away, and you've exhausted all of your options. Maybe it's related to endometriosis or some other kind of gynecological issue. I don't know for sure yet, but as I see doctors and as I get evaluated for this, then I can come back and give you guys that information. Ovarian cancer is one of those things that is really hard to test for. I think most women, when they get diagnosed, they're already like at a stage 3 or stage 4, because early ovarian cancer is not easy to catch. Like I said, you have to have a laparoscopy, and given the way our insurance is structured, and given the way that, you just have to keep doing imaging until you catch something, in order for insurance to approve anything else, I think that's basically the reason behind why my oncologist is ordering the MRI, because she's not going to be able to convince insurance, or another doctor to do anything else. So I think this information is important. Again, I don't, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it's not anything, worse than endometriosis, but endometriosis seems bad enough to me, especially if it has been affecting my health negatively. But yeah, if you guys don't see me for a while, if you guys are wondering why I'm posting videos that are talking about things that have happened like months ago, this is why, because I've just been kind of out of it, and I was too lazy to upload the videos. That's kind of like my sort of like my weakness, is that I can do things, but then taking it to the last step, taking it to finally uploading, scheduling things, is where I get stuck. It's almost like it takes everything in my power to just motivate myself to do it, even if I'm not tired, even if I'm not like super exhausted. It's just that pushing myself, motivating myself to do something that is the problem. So yeah, it's a whole situation. But I just wanted to give you guys a heads up and let you guys know. Hopefully I'll upload this video soon, because if I upload this video in a while, it kind of defeats the purpose. But Anyways, thank you so much for joining me. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Take care.